The Texas basketball season ends in a 6.5-minute meltdown. The highest seeded team left in the tournament is out. And for 31 minutes, there's no arguing this, but for 31 minutes, it looked like Texas was, for 31 minutes, cruising. And at 31 minutes into the game against Miami, nobody would have bet against Texas to win the entire tournament. In that 31 minutes, at any part in the 31 minutes against Miami, nobody would have bet against them. Texas was that good for 31 minutes. I would have made the bet had you given anybody a chance right then and there, and people probably did it and said, hey, put money in on a team to win the entire tournament. Somewhere in that 31 minutes, there were a lot of bets going to Texas, and it would have been smart money. And then 8 minutes, 53 seconds, I think it was, Texas 70, Miami 60, and then the meltdown. Texas kept missing and turning the ball over, and Miami kept shooting free throws. Texas was outscored, I think, in like 9 minutes, 45 seconds, something like that. In the final 10 minutes, 37-17. 37-17. Miami, then you start getting in these bizarre numbers. Miami makes 28 of 32 free throws. That is a ridiculous number. At one point, in 86 seconds, Miami made 8 of 9 free throws. But the most bizarre number of all, which was actually a halftime conversation during the game, and a pretty interesting halftime conversation. This is at that moment when you're thinking, well, Texas just doesn't win this game. They're going to go and play in the Final Four and probably win a championship. At halftime, you probably thought this in a home game in Houston. I mean, it could not have been set up any better. So at halftime, there's a discussion going on, a nerdy basketball discussion going on, and that is Texas is defending so well. They were. How does Miami ever even get to shoot three-pointers? And so everybody at all the analysts there are talking about different ways to create three-point shots. It was an interesting conversation. It was a compliment to Texas. Again, at that point, you're thinking they're going to Houston in a home game. I mean, 90% it will be in burnt orange, and they're going to win it all at halftime because Miami didn't shoot any threes. Here's the craziest stat of all about that game, in addition to the meltdown, and then we've got to talk about the elephant in the room. But the craziest stat of all is imagine somebody saying to you, whether you're betting or not, doesn't really matter. Imagine somebody saying, there's a team that's going to win an NCAA tournament game, not to mention it's the Final Eight, an NCAA tournament game, and not make a single three-point shot in a half. That would be laughable. That would be unheard of. After this entire conversation at halftime, wow, Texas is really all over Miami. They can't free themselves up to shoot threes. They can't even get a three-point shot off. They don't make any in the second half and win. I mean, they win. You win without making a three-point shot in the half. I guess when you make 28 of 32 free throws, nothing else seems to matter. Two big takeaways. One, if this were the Texas football team melting down like that and, say, blowing a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter, what would the reaction be? The tweets would be, fire the coach. In basketball, it's hire the coach. The football meltdown would be epic. It doesn't matter where they were ranked. They blow a 17-point lead, and that's the comparison I come up with. Maybe a 21-point lead in a quarter, and people are going after the coach. In this case, not so much. But I find myself in there not so much. I find myself reacting completely differently than if it were a Texas football program because of what has happened this year. So now, of course, we're at that point again. The elephant in the room again. The season is over. Who is the head coach? Who's the head coach? The season is over. Was the entire season and tournament enough to give Rodney Terry the job? I mean, really, how much weight do you put on blowing a 10-point lead in 8 minutes and 53 seconds. Enough to not give him the job? I doubt it. But you're at this point again, was the entire season and all that came with it. And you can't underestimate what they went through. Look, you fire a coach in December in a pretty epic way. I mean, it is a dramatic ending. Chris Beard gets whacked. So was it enough to give him the job? If you want to know how good Chris Beard is, I mean, to be honest, if you want to know how good he is and why he has another multi-million-dollar coaching job already, you want to know why? Take a look at that team. That's why. That's why Texas hired him, to stockpile talent. Now, I know it was an epic meltdown, but for 31 minutes, that's the best team in basketball. For 31 minutes, they're almost unstoppable. For 31 minutes, they are an absolute lock to go on and, I think, win it all, because the semifinal game between Texas and UConn, a home game for Texas, by the way, would have been the final. For 31 minutes, you thought that. But now you know why Chris Beard was hired all over again. Stockpiling talent. Acquiring talent. The real question is with Rodney Terry, it's not whether you like him. It's not whether he can coach. The question is, does a Texas team 3 years from now look like the one that just took the floor against Miami? Is it that deep and that talented? That's the job. The job is not taking players and drawing up plays and schemes and whatever else. The job is not being a nice guy. The job is stockpiling talent. So now you see why Chris Beard is that good. Now you see why he got hired again. The question would be, can Rodney Terry stockpile talent? Not coach the talent. It's obvious he can do that, but the job is acquiring the talent. Told you many times, when you're the head coach in college sports, you are general sales manager. How good are you? So a lot is being said. You can do with it whatever you want. A lot is being said about his post-game comment. And he said, I'm going to really miss working with this group. It was never about me. It was always about these guys. Now, of course, the big takeaway from the sentence is, I'm really going to miss working with this group. Now, you can read into that two things, of course. It was past tense and he's not coming back, or it was about the guys that are leaving and he's staying. A lot can be read into it. I wouldn't blame anybody for reading a lot into it, because you know what? You still don't know if he's the head coach. Now, that said, there is a report that's out now that says he will be hired, that there's a meeting set to take place, not that surprising, in the next 24 hours. There's no doubt that meeting should take place in the next 24 hours. I'm guessing that he's going to get hired in the next 24 hours. I'm guessing that. Most of the reports are, and I have no idea how somebody knows because it's been incredibly quiet so far. I'm guessing that's true. And if the guy were to walk away today, you can't deny the job he did this year in keeping that team focused and keeping them between the lines and confident. And they are supremely confident. I mean, for 31 minutes, there was nobody better. In the toughest league in the country, you've got to give him credit for, winning that team over and keeping that team focused and keeping that team confident and keeping that team pushing forward. And I mean, they never said anything. They never messed up publicly at all. Even in a meltdown yesterday, they came away handling it pretty well publicly. So he did an incredible job. And for 31 minutes, there was not a better team in the country. At the half, I'm thinking, and I was about to tweet it, the semifinal between Texas and UConn is the championship, and it's a home game for Texas. They're the best two teams, and I did not send that tweet. They ended up losing. I think the job is his. I mean, I'm just guessing here, and I'll say the reason why I'm guessing here is that it was just, there's just too much goodwill built up. Granted, they had that meltdown. I do think the reaction would be completely different if it were football. But I can't imagine. Here's why I don't think they can do anything but hire him. No matter what he said in the press conference, I'm really going to miss this group. I can't imagine how you spin it if he's not hired. That's a difficult spin. Now, if you want to argue, hey, Jeff, here's the out. They blew it. They're that good. They should have won. They should have advanced. They were the highest rated team left highest seeded team left, and they blew up in 8 minutes and 53 seconds. They melted down. So that's why you don't hire him. I mean, if you want to say that, I get it. It's still going to be a tough spin. It is. For the entire season, I think the spin is too tough. I think he gets hired because spinning your way out of it is too tough. I think it is just such a good feel-good story and a likable guy. There's no way to spin your way out of it. I think the headlines that are out there this afternoon or this morning are probably going to be right. In the next 24 hours, it's announced. The next 24 hours, it's a feel-good moment. And then the pressure's on. Does it 3 years from now, when he's the head coach and making a lot of money, does the product, the talent level that you saw on the floor yesterday, do you see it again in 3 years?